we're going to go through this question before us. It's asking us to sketch this over the domain of 0, 2. So we've got a domain that we need to consider here, which is going to make things a little bit more trickier. But let's just begin by doing what we know. So we're sketching this right here. So let's label our axes. Let's figure out what the amplitude is. Remember, the way in which you figure out the amplitude is just looking at the number at the very front. So it's going to be 2. So that means I'm going 2 up and I'm going 2 down. Next, we're going to figure out what the period is. The period is found by going 2 pi over whatever your coefficient in this case of t is. So that means it's going to be 3 pi because that's what's in front of t. Once I'm here, this will cancel with that and I'll be left with 2/3. So what that means is to do one complete cycle of this cos graph is 2/3. So if we zoom into our graph here for a second, one cycle is 2/3. But now, hopefully you can realize that we're encountering a little bit of a problem because my domain is from 0 to 2. And at the moment, I'm 0 to 2/3. So I'm not even close. So what I'm going to have to do is another period. So I will add on to this another period. Try your best to be as neat and symmetrical as possible. Now, where am I now? Well, this is 2/3. 2/3 plus 2/3 is 4/3. And I'm still not to 2 yet, so I would have to do it again. And now if I add 2/3 again to this, 4/3 plus 2/3 is 6/3, which is the same as 2. So I've made it all the way to the end. And this just so happens to end quite neatly at the domain, but sometimes it won't end quite as neatly, and you might have to cut it off at some point. Perfect. Having now done that, you can see that there are in fact 3 cycles within the domain. Another way you could have just seen this or verified how many cycles are in the domain is by doing something like this. So how many cycles in domain? What you could have done is taken the domain and divided it by the period. So that would have been 2 divided by 2/3. Remember, stay, change, flip. This 2 would cancel with that 2, 3 cycles. And sure enough, there are 3 cycles there. So just how many cycles you got fitting in the domain. Okay, before we can finish up here, we're going to have to find our intercepts. To do this, we're going to be using our scale. Remember, your scale is just the period divided by 4. Our period here is 2/3. Another way to divide by 4 is just timesing by 1 on 4, same thing. So this is going to leave us with 2 on 12, which is the same as 1 on 6. Okay, so 1 on 6 is the scale. So that means when I come here now, I can break up one period into 4 sections, and the distance of each of these sections is going to be 1 on 6. This will be 2 on 6. This will be 3 on 6. This will be 4 on 6, and 4 on 6, when you simplify it, is 2/3. This will be 5 on 6. This will be 6 on 6. This will be 7 on 6. This will be 8 on 6, and 8 on 6 is the same as 4/3. This will be 9 on 6. This will be 10 on 6. This will be 11 on 6. And then this will be 12 on 6, which is 2. Once you've done that, you'll then have to go back and simplify where you can. So for instance, 2/6 is the same as 1/3. 3 on 6 is the same as a half. 5 on 6 would stay. 6 on 6 is 1. 7 on 6 stays. 9 on 6 is the same as 3 on 2. 10 on 6, once you simplify it, you could halve both of those. So it would be 5 on 3. And then 11 on 6 can't be simplified. So you do have to make sure that you go back and you fix up, simplify all of these down, and have a rubber with you, rub out what you need to get what you need. But yeah, the last thing I would do is I would come up here and I would label this endpoint as 2, 2. Then just double check you've done everything correctly. I've got my amplitudes, I've labeled my axes, I've got my endpoint, I've shown my scale. And remember, most of the time when you're doing the scale, you only just need to show the intercept. So I probably don't need to show that, or that, or that, or that, just really that. But again, to get these points, I had to find all of them. It's just easier to do it. There are ways to find the intercepts without doing the scale, but it's far, far more intensive. So doing it this way is the easiest way to go about it. So just remember, you always have to show the intercepts, your amplitude, your endpoints, and so on. Hopefully you found this useful in going through this question. A little bit involved there, but hopefully all of that has made sense.